Great taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.
Welcome to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. I'm Steve Boss, your host every week for 60 minutes of delicious radio, or once a month, delicious TV, right? Because we're coming to you live from Green Building Supply. And yeah, you can. Yes, go ahead. Yeah. and we thank Jason Strong, who's here from Fairfield Media Center, making this live stream possible and also allowing us to, well, I guess letting people see it later, right? Because you're going to put it up on your Fairfield Media Center YouTube channel, right? Fantastic. All right. So I want to introduce our guest who has been with us before, Aaron Hall. Welcome.
Hi. It's good to be back again.
I hope so. I hope it feels like a little bit of home.
Yeah,
a little bit, right? Very easy, right?
A little bit bigger than my kitchen, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, we're happy to have you because let's just put it this way. It's not easy to get good bread really in a lot of places. And so we're thrilled to have the opportunity not to only have some good bread, but to learn some of the insights that you have into the baking process. And we're focusing on bagels. So that happens to be one of my favorite sources of bread. So you happen to be one of my favorite bagel bakers. So
That's nice. It's actually one of my least favorite bread vehicles, but the bagel in itself. But
so now how did that get started then for you?
Just people. There's one thing that people talk about. It's like you can't find a good bagel around here. Everybody says that, and so I thought
it's true.
It's apparently true, and I thought, well, I'll see if I can fix that. I guess so.
So in other words, it was a mess of your own making.
Right.
Yeah. So don't blame it on the bagel then.
No, it's not. Okay. It's not the bagel's fault.
Right. And you bake those bagels. You bake bagels for Rapid Creek Cidery, right, for their brunches?
Yeah, Rapid Creek Cidery just opened up at Wilson's Orchard, just outside or south of Solon, north of Iowa City, and they've started to do like a little lox and bagels thing on their menu. So Matt Steigerwald, who has been on the show before, some of you might remember him, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, he's a head chef down there, so he's. Likes bagels too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we all like good bagels. And I know there's a New Yorker in the audience who has told me that your bagels are a lot better than the bagels that she used to always get in New York. Matter of fact, she said that the bagels in New York are, so thick, we'll say, that people would scoop out the insides and then fill those insides with whatever they were filling them. But your bagels, not necessary. We're just going to chew them. It'll be good.
Well, that's good. That's good. It's good to hear.
Mm-hmm. All right. So give us a little bit of a background about baking. I heard something this afternoon which it made me think that maybe your mom had a lot to do with it.
My mom baked for a little while, and she was in her 20s in college. She also made a lot of food at home, baked a lot. And I think my brothers and I both, we all sort of grew up with food in our hands and dough in our hands, and I think that just watching somebody make all these things, you felt you could do the same. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's some of it definitely had to do with my family for sure.
And who got into the baking world in terms of professional first? Was it you, your older brother, or?
So my brother bakes in New York, and he would have got into it, I guess, just before I did. I'd ask him questions, and he'd just say, "Well, you just have to try it again." He's like no answers whatsoever, just try it again. Just do it again. Mm-hmm. I was asking questions that probably didn't make any sense. It's like same. People ask me those same questions. I'm like, I don't know. Let's do it again.
That is really funny, but really, in terms of cooking, that's a pretty solid piece of information because you have to do it again. Like I told you, I made cacio e pepe today, right? And it really wasn't. It didn't come out the way I wanted it to come out, and so I don't have any choice. But if I want it, I got to try to do it again, right? I have instructions. I know what I need to do, but it didn't come out the way I wanted it to come out. So I'll just force myself to do it again. It's tough, but somebody's got to experiment with it. So what are you doing right now?
I mixed some bagel dough earlier. So right now I'm portioning. making these small little balls. There's a couple different ways to make the bagel round. This is the way that I've found is the most successful, I guess. I portion them into little 4-ounce pieces, make them into a little ball, sort of similar to what I would do if I was making like a pizza crust or something. And then I'll show you in a minute. Another way you can do is you make them in, and maybe, Eric, I don't know how you do this. Some people put them in these little rounds like this, and then fold them over and do this little thing. And so then you have this little connection that you hope binds, but so often I'd boil them, which we'll talk about later, and then it just gets raw inside. Like it seeps in, and then it's always raw. So I kicked that method, and I picked up this one, and I think it's worked out really well.
Okay, that's good. So what about bagel dough? Is it different than, for example, we have miche right here, right? This is a beautiful piece of bread. Smells really good. And we have sourdough over here, another really gorgeous piece of bread. Your sourdough is so tasty. I just love it. So good. And then we have bagel dough. So tell us a little bit about the differences.
The bagel dough is it's a lot. It's got a much lower hydration, so there's a lot less water in it. And from then on, I guess a lot of these things are sourdough. This is a yeasted dough. It's also a straight mix, so you can just put everything in the bowl and mix it up. And that's actually the really nice thing about the bagel dough is that you just throw it in the mixer. You leave it in there for 8 minutes or so until the gluten's really built up, and take it out and fridge it. And there's not a lot of hands-on time in the beginning part of bagel making, which is nice. It's later that things get a little more hectic. But the flour is a little bit different. This is speckled with whole wheat, but it's mostly a white flour. A lot of those over there have more rye. The miche is it's a high extraction flour from
Run-of-the-mill organics.
Right. Run-of-the-mill organics milled that, and it's been a great flour to use for that miche, for that loaf, for sure.
What's that? What is that? Do you know, Eric, off the top of your head? What is that? Just a whole wheat?
It's a whole wheat, but it's sifted a little bit. Mm-hmm. So it still has a little bit of the bran.
And I'm sitting here with the microphone.
Yeah. It has a little bit of the bran and a little bit of the germ still, but and it's a winter as far as I remember. But
winter, okay. So yeah, it's a lovely hearty loaf. I was reading that that's the kind of bread that families, for example, will say France they'd bake and then they'd live off of for a week because it's a huge loaf. It's a beautiful loaf, very dense too.
Yeah, they said they only had access to the town oven once a week or something, so they would bake this huge loaf, and it was also considered as a peasant loaf because they would just throw in all the random flours that they had left over or whatever and would make this large loaf. And that's usually runs as a pretty high hydrated dough as well. Quite a bit of water. And this is probably on this, they're about 2 kilos.
So when you're talking about this, I mean, how many people here are home bakers that they bake up their own bread? So there's how many? Okay, so there's 50% of the people here that do that. So the other 50% may not know what you're talking about in terms of hydration levels, that type of thing. So maybe you could give everyone a little crash course on that.
You just have to try it again. No. So just hydration just talks about the water. So you think about 100% hydrated dough would have the same amount of flour as it would water, which you might think about being extremely runny and still almost like a cake batter. And it's dependent on what flour you're using for sure. We were just talking flour earlier today with Breadtopia, and we talked about some of their some of the ancient grains that they're doing right now. You need a lot of water because those grains they've got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of nutrients, more nutrient rich, and a lot of the bran and germ is still in those mixes, and you just need a lot more water for those, and that's kind of how that ends up being mixed.
Whereas the the bagel is simpler.
Yeah. That's what I've been trying to say the whole time. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so tell us. I can see the speckles of whole wheat. That's so cute. I like that. That's really good. All right. Now, typically, I would think that most of the bagels that I've been familiar with most throughout my life haven't had any speckles of whole wheat. They're just either regular white flour totally, or what they call pumpernickel, which is I think they put some brown food coloring in the
little caramel.
Little caramel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is really good, and it also feels really delicious. So when these balls, I noticed that what you're doing, there's something about the actual finishing process of making that ball with the little knot at the bottom kind of thing. So no, you want to tell people what you're doing? You're sealing it up there and there. Yeah,
you just kind of seal. What you do is you just kind of put all the dough into the inside.
Show them.
Kind of pinch it into this little, sort of like if you were making buns, like a pan of buns or something. What you want to do is create that tight skin on the outside and then seal it up before you make it into a bagel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's the ratio then of flour to water in the bagel that you're doing anyway?
That I'm doing. Mm-hmm. What is that?
Is it a tough question?
It's about 60%. So my secrets. I'll share my secrets.
Okay, excellent.
Some of my secrets come from Jeffrey Hamelman.
So some of your secrets, I didn't have you on mic, so some of your secrets come from Jeffrey Hamelman, all right?
Yeah, he seems to have a really good sense of a lot of different bread, and everything that I've baked out of here has been really great. And so sometimes you just follow his directions. And then change it based on how you think things turn out. Mm-hmm. I had some issues with his recipe, so I kind of changed some stuff, and it worked out great. But this is about 58%, about 60% is what this is running. I had a little sourdough and also a little barley malt syrup in these that we're tasting today. So that adds a little more liquid to it as well. So.
Okay. All right. And the barley malt is used for what purpose?
It adds a little sweetness to it, and it helps with. It also gets boiled in a barley malt and water mixture, and that helps with colorization.
Okay.
It's a little bit on the browner side, just a touch, but.
So that's really.
Some people boil it, and Steve was saying honey.
Honey water.
Lye is traditional. You don't boil it; you just dip it. But that can be
pretzels too.
And maybe you do boil it. Anyway, that ends up on the dangerous side if you don't know what you're doing. So,
I prefer the barley malt. Actually, I like that idea much better than any of the other methods. But so, all right. So now, are you just playing, or what are you doing there with this dough?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the fun thing about bagels, right? Is that
so there's a thumb and a finger action here.
Yep. This is how I've found that. This is how it works. They're seam side down. I flip them over. Thumb goes all the way down to the counter. Pretty much like you try to get right in the center. Yeah.
Move this bottle. Yeah, we can do that. We can move a couple of these things, and we can do this several times, or Aaron can do it several times.
Yeah,
and show people. Because I've actually made bagels before, and I can tell you that they didn't. I'll tell you the thing about the way my bagels look. When I took a pasta making class many years ago in Italy, one of the things that happened was that my shapes that I made became, I guess I would say, a great focus for people's laughter. And so I would say that the bagels that I made would have, if I'd done it in the same situation, they would have enjoyed some more hearty laughs.
You want to try?
No.
Would you like to try one?
I actually, I would, but I have to hold this microphone. So, but maybe somebody else might want to do it, possibly.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to come up and try that? So anybody who wants to can come up and try it. Okay, Mary, just wash your hands back there if you don't mind, because the health inspector might be watching the show and come turn us down. Okay, so show us again one more time. From start to finish, how do you do it? Okay.
So I just flip them over.
Okay.
I find sort of where I made that seam, that seal. And I just push my thumb all the way down, pretty much straight down, till it ends up on the other side. And then I kind of you don't want to pull too tight because you'll just tear the dough. So you just kind of let it do its thing. You just slowly stretch it out. And you want to try to, I mean, where you put your thumb is really where, like how it becomes even. If you don't find that middle space, it's going to be kind of, I mean, this one's kind of wonky.
I noticed that, but I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah. This is like almost what Steve would maybe.
No, mine would look a lot worse than that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna.
You just want to try to stretch it out, but not too fast. Otherwise, you'll just tear it.
I feel really sorry for the people who are listening to this on the radio because they can't possibly have any idea. They're going to have to use their imagination thoroughly to really understand what's going on here. But basically, we're making bagel. Look at her. She's good.
Method, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's good.
Left-handed.
That's the key, right? Left-handed.
That's it. Left-handed.
I like that. Okay, that's excellent. Okay, so what's the deal when you talk about bagels? I mean, the bagel is, I would say, it's a very maligned piece of bread, and the reason I say that is because when you buy bagels in different situations, like frozen bagels, we'll say, for example, or you buy bagels at a chain. I probably shouldn't name it. Okay, I'll do it anyway. Panera, and it's like bread. It's not bagel. It's not. It's like a roll basically. So what are they what are they doing differently in terms of making this? I mean, what's the big deal about making a bagel instead of a roll? Or if you're going to make a roll, why don't you just call it a roll instead of a bagel? You know, because
is a bagel a roll?
No,
It's a
bagel.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. That's it. It's a bagel. A bagel is a bagel, and it shouldn't. It has it's holy. I mean, honestly, right? So, they're.
So what are they doing? Like, why are they making a bagel then?
I have no idea. You know, I guess it's because everybody
expects.
I suppose they probably do. You know, I think it's because you're expected to have them because they've become, part of the modern culture as opposed to being a part of a specific. Culture.
Right.
They've moved out beyond that Eastern European end of things into basically all parts of culture.
Can you get pickled herring at Panera?
You can't get that. You can get it at Russ and Daughters in New York. Okay. And remember, didn't I take a picture of it for you or not? Yeah. That is beautiful.
Mary's bagel.
Can everybody see that?
It's fun.
Excellent. Yeah. And you're doing a good job.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
You can come back.
I'm going to do it with my grandchildren.
Oh, now there you go. Now see, if I took notes, I could do this with my grandchildren. But yeah. Oh, excellent idea. That was everybody's throwing out saying I should just watch the video. And I have to tell you, I've never watched any of these videos. So, well, I was already here once. It's like, so, all right. So that's really good. So what's the problem also? I mean, I think it's really important. I like your holes, okay? I really do. I think that they're balanced properly. Some people, there's no holes at all. It's just like there's an indentation, and the dough fills everything in. Right. That's not a bagel. No. And then other people have holes that are like, bigger than what remains on the outside. Yeah. That's not a bagel, unless you're just trying to create a bagel that's very heavy on profit margin because there's not much there.
Right. Yeah, I think balance is good. You want a little bit of hole because if there's no hole, it's not a bagel, right?
Well, I like what you just said. Balance is the most important thing, and you can apply that to anywhere. And that's what I was supposed to do with the cacio e pepe. It was all that was the guiding knowledge that I was given was balance. So I would say you can apply that to not only to everything in life but also bagel making. So you want to make the whole balanced with the rest of the flour that's there. So all right. So we know that it's got about 58 to 60% hydration, right? And it's a straight mix, right? Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Cool. Let's do that.
So these go after you. We're kind of working backwards because it's a food show, and
we're very disorganized here most of the time, so it's not a problem. We don't need to pretend that we really have everything together. So anybody who hears or watches this regularly knows that we don't. So we'll just be who we are. All right. So we're working backwards.
You can just set that one right there. I think we're. Fill up that pan.
All right. By the way, you're listening or watching Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. I'm Steve Boss, your host for 60 Minutes of Delicious Radio on KRUU every week. Our next live show, don't miss it. Oh, we can talk about Montreal bagels since you're here, so we'll get to that in a second. Our next show here at Green Building Supply is Tuesday, December 5th. Pete DeSico and Mayor Ed Malloy will be here, and it's going to be a holiday festive meal show, and I bet no one can guess what type of cuisine is going to be featured, right? No idea, right? Nobody knows. Okay, all right, I'll tell you. It's Italian, so all right. So yeah. Oh, see, you were surprised, right? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, go ahead, Aaron.
So I'm just combining all the things that I mix into bagels. Water. I throw a little sourdough starter in. This is me measuring right now. And then...
so when you say a little sourdough starter, what have you got? About how many grams?
I mean, it's probably like 20 grams.
Okay. And do you, as a baker, weigh everything very carefully?
For the most part, I do, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important. Yeah, and the easiest thing about, everybody weighs things in cups or something, and they think that weighing things by weight is, by grams or ounces or something is really difficult, but really it's easier, that you can just throw a pan on a scale and just like fill it up until it says it's ready, right? Instead of having to like level off cups and all of that.
And it's a lot more accurate when it comes to baking too, right?
Absolutely. Flour gets compacted in a cup. There's the scoop method or there's the scoop method,
All right, so we got about 20 grams of sourdough starter, and we've got some barley malt, like what?
A little tablespoon of barley malt.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Instead of barley malt, you can also use malt powder. Which you can get from Breadtopia.
Let's see, that's 2 mentions so far. Let's see how many we can get in an hour.
Again, it's straight mix, so flour, salt, and a little yeast in there too. And this has a little, one thing I never measure is the handful of whole wheat flour I throw in.
And you do that just because you can say on the bag you can say whole grains.
Yeah, whole grain. There's one. No.
Okay, so now let's also be really clear. This is not gold medal white flour.
It's not gold medal,
right? So it's a little bit different entity than the highly refined white flour that most people are used to.
Not bromated.
Mm-hmm. And you want to explain that?
I usually use a bromated. Mm-hmm. Oh, boy.
He's looking at people in the audience that are supposed to know about that stuff, too, and they're all shaking their head.
Yeah, right. So...
Okay, somebody look up bromated. Soren, where are you?
Oh, it's washed.
Soren, look up bromated, will you? And come up and tell us what it means, if you don't mind. BROMATED.
I've researched it and then.
Yep, in and out. I got it. Yeah, it's your age.
It's my age.
Okay, so
I actually don't know how this is going to go. I usually use a heavy-duty mixer because it is a pretty dry dough. But also, it's sort of like mixing. If you've made, you guys were talking about Italian food. If you've made pasta ever, it's kind of in that same. It's pretty dry, needs a lot of work.
Which is a lot of fun, actually, when you're doing baking, getting your hands into it. I think that's the most fun part of cooking in general. Well, the eating's okay, I guess, but actually getting your hands into all the dough, and especially if you're a young kid, that really works well. Okay. Whoops, there it goes. Hey, Soren, you're going to have to read this because I already lost it, and I haven't had the phone long enough to know how to use it. So you come, please, help us out, will you? Will you read it for us? Come back. You're okay. Oh, wait. Come back this way. All right.
Chemical structure of potassium bromate. Potassium bromate is a flour in pulver that strengthens dough and allows for greater oven spring and higher rising in the oven.
Okay. So it's the chemical structure of potassium bromate is it strengthens dough and allows for greater oven spring. That doesn't elasticity, but that doesn't say anything about taste, of course. So thank you so much for that. What does that say? I can't see it, so it's all right. It's not any good. We know that. So whatever it is, it's no good. All right. It's a chemical process, right?
Jeffrey Hamelman will tell you all about bromation and enriched flour. I've read it before.
That is really a good way to get out of it. I like that. Okay, but the bottom line is, we'll try to find a better one, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So, you left some of that. Look at all that good. Yeah, gotta get that out of there. Okay. So I'll move this away from people so they can see. So basically, what happened is you just hand mixed all the dough, and now once it came together, you took it out of the bowl and are kneading it on the counter. Beautiful.
You got it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to explain what you're doing to everybody, so it makes it really, really simple. Now, about how long are you gonna have to do that?
I don't know. It kind of seems like a while.
Till it's nice and smooth?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll let you do it for a little while. That's just fine. And is there any particular technique that you like to employ when you're kneading dough? Because people have their own methods of doing that too. Some people like to really take out their aggressions on it. I've noticed a lot of throwing and beating. Do you do that?
No, not too much. I just fold and roll. It's I don't know. It's a little meditative, right? You just.
No, I think it is. It is, because the whole thing is. I really should have looked this up before I came, but if you want to, I'll try to remember to look this up before the next show, and maybe I can send it out to everybody. But Josie Baker wrote this beautiful piece a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, on Instagram, where he was talking about working with the dough, and it was. You guys, you bakers, you tend to write a lot or think a lot about the feel of the dough and working with the dough, because it is a living entity, and that has a lot to do with the whole process. And the process changes all the time based on the type of flour that you're using, based on the conditions that you're in, based on the hydration, everything. It's not. It's a mystical process, is the way I kind of feel, and I feel like the people that are really doing it all the time, they're communing with that dough. I mean, not to. I mean, I'm being very serious now in terms of how I look at this. And when you read some of the things that he's written and other bakers, it's quite extraordinary to realize how deeply enmeshed in the handling of the dough and the partnership, essentially, between the hands and the dough itself that a baker actually feels.
I read a really nice article, and I don't think it's the same one, but the interviewer or the person who was writing the article talked about, talking to this baker, and the guy was wandering around, like, just touching stuff. He's like, well, that needs 5 more minutes, and like walk over there. He's like, oh, that could use another hour, and he'd touch it, and he's like, huh. Like, he just didn't get the same reaction out of it. That's sort of like when I was talking about my brother, and he's like, you just got to keep doing it. It's like, and part of that is like noticing what you're doing, right? I mean, if you're not attentive to what the dough feels like yesterday to what it feels like today, you haven't really figured anything out. But
yeah, I was actually, and it's not. I mean, you've had experiences, I'm sure, in baking that it doesn't come out the way you wanted it to come out. I mean, that's just what happens. It's a reality, right?
Maybe at your house. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I've definitely had issues like that before. Yeah,
and it's not easy, but it's something that you have to learn from. Which is why you say do it again, right?
And if you are attentive to that, you do realize that, like, as you are mixing something, whether it's something at home and you're maybe the oven's at a funny temperature, and you're like, well, that's never going to get done in 2 hours or whatever. It's like just have to think about that. It's like you put your hands in some dough and you're like, well, this doesn't feel at all right. And so you kind of look back and you're like, well, what did I do wrong? Or what I've definitely done that. It's like, oh yeah, I actually started to mix something else entirely different. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's happened.
All right. Well, the thing is that how many people here have experienced this communion with the dough that we're talking about here? Yeah. Okay. So it's okay. You can raise your hand. It's all right. You don't have to feel a little strange about it. It's really true. It's a very interesting process, and I think that also fits in with other aspects of cooking. I hear this a lot from chefs, or you read it in books where they say it's really important to listen to the food when it's being cooked, and that's something that I find is I guess something that I'd like to learn more about, listening to the food, because I haven't picked up on that subtle level of listening as much as I could to the food. But I think it's the same kind of thing. Your dough is starting to become much more smooth.
It's starting to come together, right?
Mm-hmm. And how should that feel? You know how dough feels?
Feel?
Right. How should it feel? I mean, it's not a baby's bottom, right?
No. This dough comes together pretty nice, and it does have a little bit of pushback. It's pretty glutinous. It is on that drier side, and it will become this nice, smooth little. It's not sticky at all. It's actually really nice to work with. I work with a lot of high hydrated dough, and everything's sticky, and you kind of need a lot of flour to deal with it, and you have to be quick. But this stuff is just it's great. I like it.
I was actually trying to find this thing that Josie wrote recently, and I think that this is not it. So I have to keep looking while I'm doing the show, which should be interesting. Trying to do. I love the way you're laughing, because I deserve to be laughed at, actually. So it's not a problem. Anyway, so I want to know a little bit about the different breads that you do. So you do bagels, you do sourdough, you do miche, and you do like a walnut.
Different rye variations.
But is there anything that you really love doing more than one another, the process? Or is there one part of the process that you like more than any other? I mean, other than collecting the money.
Yeah, right. The baking is always nice, because that's where it all comes together, right? I mean, there's what you mixed yesterday. Like pre-mixes the day before, and then you're like putting everything together, and then once you throw it in the oven, that's really when you realize if what you were doing was right.
I like that. So,
but in terms of bread, I guess I've always liked the sourdough. Anything sourdough. It's slow. It's interesting. But also brioche is really nice. I do a yeasted brioche with a little Polish and also sourdough.
And Polish is?
It's a mix of commercial yeast and flour and water.
And brioche is such a great thing for not only sandwiches but desserts. It's terrific.
French toast.
Really good.
I like to put it on the bottom of stews, like old brioche. I just pour stew over it.
Oh, I kind of like that idea. I've never even thought about that. That's really good. I mean, it's really, I love brioche also with, like cheese, for example, in a cheese course. It's really nice because it's so rich. It really fits nice.
The crust gets all caramely on the outside, so it adds like a whole other depth of flavor.
Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, so I'm gonna just read this thing to you because I think it's pretty interesting what he has to say. So this is Josie Baker. Josie Baker is in California. And he has Josie Baker bread. It's I think it's called The Mill, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a coffee and bread place, and it's quite extraordinary. And he became very, I'll say, infamous for several years ago having toast that was $4 a slice. But that's not a problem because I think it's $6 now. So it's not as yes, it's great toast. Yes, It's really big, it's really thick, and it's really delicious. And Aaron will tell you that the best loaf of bread he's ever had in his life was at Josie Baker's. So
It was a Sonora wheat, which I just picked up some Sonora grains from Breadtopia,
3. Okay.
and I'm gonna recreate that loaf.
That is totally awesome. So anyway, here's just some thoughts about bread and about what it's like, what goes on, I guess, in the meditative minds of some bakers. All right. So it's that time of year again. Our farmers have been hard at work harvesting new crops. Now it's our turn in the grand transformation from seed to loaf. A real exciting time for us in the bakery as our sensitivity and intuition get tested all the way from the mill to the mixing bowl to the shaping bench to the oven. We love working with farmer Fritz and Community Grains, and we just got in this year's harvest of red and white wheat. Fritz's red wheat, brought to life here at the sparkle hands of one of the bakers at My Heartbeat, is just bursting with flavor. All we do is just try to stay out of its way. And within a few days, for the first time ever, we'll be using California-grown rye in our dark mountain rye, grown by the wonderful Walter Woodhouse. It's a huge step for us, but we've been working on this for 4 to 5 years to use only California grains, and I can't even believe we're almost doing it. And so that was like a little peek into his thinking process in terms of bread, which was that one key line, which was stay out of the way. So right, yeah, that's a really interesting point, and it's kind of like the same thing though in cooking in general, because if you just allow the ingredients to speak for themselves, you're really going to find that everything that you end up eating is going to be a lot more tasty and fun. And I there was a point where I'm sure some of us who love to go out and explore restaurants and see all the different things that go on, what these creative chefs are doing, and we were looking for the next big thrill at one point. I don't do that anymore. I really just like to go somewhere where somebody is just right present in front of me and really just doing things in a very straightforward manner. Yes, there's going to be, if you're in a restaurant, you're going to see there's going to be chefy things that happen, but in general, it's allowing those ingredients to really speak for themselves. And we were talking this afternoon a little bit about this place in New York called Superiority Burger. And this is a vegetarian vegan place, and mostly vegan actually. And the guy who owns it is Brooks Headley, and he was the pastry chef at Del Posto, which is the only New York Times 4-star Italian restaurant in the city. And he gave that up a couple of years ago to open this really tiny little vegetarian vegan place. And basically what he's showing everybody that comes in there is that it doesn't really matter what type of food you're making. If you are completely focused on creating just the best food out of whatever ingredients you're using, it can shine. And the cuisine that he's putting in there, I would go. I mean, every time I go to New York, I go there. I mean, so it's not like it's a 4-star dining experience. Matter of fact, it's just kind of crazy because it's so tiny. You've been there. Yeah. And
it's a little stressful.
Yeah,
you walk in and you walk down. Mm-hmm. And it's tiny and it's busy and you just want out, but you want your food, but you don't want your food first.
Well, we've been lucky. Every single time somebody's gotten up, there's 4 seats on one side and 3 seats on the other side. That's it, 7 seats. And then there's a little tiny bar 2 people could stand at. And we've been really lucky. Somebody's always gotten up. And so a few weeks ago when we were there, and I related the story this afternoon, it was like Brooks brought over these little cups because nothing's served in fine china or anything like that. So we brought these little paper cups that had beans in them, and because you could see the beans, and most of his food is brown, which is kind of interesting. So they had beans in it, and there was a slice of bread sticking out the side. And the way he sold this was he brought it over and he said, "Yeah, these are some beans that we made, and there's this bread. It was we're working on the sweet potato bread, and it didn't come out right. And so this is the only part we could save was some of the ends, and so I just stuck that in here." And we're kind of looking at it, and I totally know it's going to be great, but my wife Rachel is she's like, okay, and so okay, so All right. So she takes a bite out of this, and she just about, falls over. It was just unbelievable. The simplest ingredients, but with the most utmost care and attention to detail. And I think that that's really a key. Yes, we won't be able to hear you, so go ahead. Oh, Superiority Burger. It's in New York City in the East Village. Yeah, in the East Village. Yeah, it's a Superiority Burger. Let's see, we've almost given it as much play as we have Breadtopia. So that was all right.
But yeah, I think that's, even just that dish right there, as a baker, you end up having a lot of bread in the house, so you try to figure out what to do with it, right? So, you put it in soups, you put it in, like, everything.
Croutons on soups.
Put everything on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay, so what's going on over here in this?
So part of the bagel process is boiling. And so I boil them in a little barley malt syrup and water mix. You just use enough barley malt to make it kind of look like iced tea or something.
Yeah, it looks a little like iced tea.
Wait till it boil. Well, just wait.
It's a little warm.
Well, it's not ready yet.
All right. So, but first of all, these bagels.
These have been in the fridge for about 6 hours.
So that's what you want to do, though. Put them in the fridge for about 6 hours.
Put them in the fridge for about 6 hours. Let them chill. They've got a little yeast in them, so they will kind of keep going. That helps add flavor. I often leave them overnight. I mix them at night, shape them, come in the morning, and bake them off. So they get boiled. Jeffrey says 45 seconds. I don't think that's long enough. I boil them for about 2 minutes, and it kind of helps.
Well, that's significantly longer.
It's a little bit longer. And I don't know, maybe he has a different boiling method or something, but
maybe his temperature is different. Thank you.
That was good. But yeah, I feel like 2 minutes works out pretty well. It creates a nice skin on the bagel. When it's baked, it's nice and chewy, and yeah.
And your bagels are baked in a regular electric, not a regular electric oven, but in a baker's oven, right?
Yeah, I've got an electric steam-injected oven. It's about, 3 trays wide, so about that long or so. And it's got a hearth floor, and it has heating elements on the bottom, on the deck, and then also up above. So I put bagels on a sheet tray, kind of like this. It's actually perforated, no parchment paper, and I put that right into the oven, and I leave it in there. I steam the deck, and then wait about 10 minutes or so, and then I transfer all the bagels onto the deck. So I take them off the sheet tray. They all go on the deck.
Okay, so how would you translate that activity and that professional equipment to what we have at home, which is basically what we've got right here, which is an electric oven most of us have?
Yeah, so ideally, I've been thinking about this, and to be honest, I haven't tried it, but I think it would work, is using a pizza stone at home and doing something very similar where you have the pizza stone in, you have a sheet tray, you can put them in for a little bit, and then flip them onto the stone. Yeah. There's things called bagel boards. Maybe they sell those at Breadtopia. Oh, wow, yeah. And those are often used, I guess, in like wood-fired ovens, but also you can use them in home ovens too. And yeah, I actually don't know too much about breadboards, but I didn't have any, so I had to figure out a different way to make it happen. So.
All right. So do we?
but I really think that throwing them on the hearth or the pizza stone helps kind of like add to the texture of the exterior in a way that maybe like a wood-fired oven would.
Okay, so that brings us to the Montreal style, right? Yeah. Okay, so where is that Montreal person? Oh, she's right there, but she doesn't want to insult anybody. Is that Montreal you don't want to insult? Or I see. You don't want to insult any bagel baker outside of Montreal. Okay, that's interesting. So the whole, is that really the only major difference though in that methodology? Is
I've been trying to talk to people about that, and oftentimes it's just discussed as the size of the hole in the bagel can differentiate between like a Montreal bagel and like a New York bagel. But is it texture?
Yeah, texture.
Texture. It's not as chewy. Hey, it's not as chewy, and it's also finished in that wood-fired environment too, which makes it a little bit different. However, and the honey, yes. However, they boil it in honey water, which brings up a little different. We're not going to get into it right now. So right. So all right. So we're going to put these bagels in for 2 minutes, about.
Yeah.
Right. But I also want to just get back to this in terms of creating the right environment in the home oven, because I'm not too clear yet on that. So if we're going to put it in the oven first on a baking tray, basically, with a piece of parchment or something like that at 450, say?
Yeah, like 500.
At 500, okay.
Yeah.
And we're going to leave it in for about how long?
I leave it in for about 10 minutes or so. And then at that point, you can take the tray off and put the bagels on the hearth.
Okay, so right on the stone, but we're not doing anything to create the hydration element, the steam element.
Yeah, so I thought about that. What you can do is use another sheet tray. So say you have 2 sheet trays, and you leave one of the sheet trays in the oven, and you just flip it right on the top. A lot of people bake sourdoughs like that with like in a Dutch oven or something. I think you can kind of access something similar in that way. You could also just pour some hot water maybe on that pan or something like that. But also, because they come out of this water, they'd go into an ice bath. They already have a lot of like moisture on them already. So
So you think we'd be safe?
I think you'd be safer, yeah.
We don't have to go through all kinds of great hoops. Yeah. So when you put them in this mixture of water and barley malt, right, and you leave them in for a couple of minutes, and then you turn them a couple times?
Yeah, usually people talk about when they float, but I feel like mine never sink. So
yes, yours stayed on top of the water the whole time.
I've never dealt with that. So because they float, I try to get both sides boiled. So I usually just throw them in, flip them again, and then I take them out and put them in this ice water bath.
And how long do they sit in the ice water?
About the same time that new bagels sit in here.
Oh, wow.
So about 2 minutes. I just take it out.
Wow. And what does the water do again exactly?
What does what water do?
The boiling?
Oh, the boiling.
And then the ice.
It helps seal kind of that crust on the exterior and create sort of what that chew is, right? So it starts that baking process so that when you bake them, you're not over baking them. You've already sort of started that. And then the imagination.
And you really, it should be iced water.
Ice. So like I use a bunch of ice and a little water, and they chill that way.
Okay. All right. So
this is kind of what this would look like. And then you just let them
2 minutes in there, and then
chill in here.
Into the 2 minutes into the barley malt water, and then 2 minutes into the ice bath, essentially. And then you don't actually, you move them directly onto the tray.
Yeah, I put them right on this tray, and that's when I usually let them sit for a little while so they're not super wet, and then that's when you could dip them in a. I like to do everything, a little everything something, or just sesame. And because it's wet, you just dip them right in there and it's covered.
And you only do the tops?
A little bowl, and I only do the top. I like to have both. I kind of like to have a plain side, and I like to have like a something side.
No, I totally get that, but you know what?
Gives me options.
What I have to do at home is we have to share. So in other words, if we cut that bagel in half, here we go. Here's another whole topic.
So that's
toasted
why you
or
get everything bagels.
Well, but no, that's not exactly
everything.
No, you're not letting me talk. This is my show. I mean, So I mean, the bottom line is here. You heard that, right? The bottom line is here that what we have to do is we cut them in half. So that half that has everything on it, whether it's the sesame seed or the other stuff, that has to get cut in half again, because one person can't get the whole, or you have to cut 2 bagels, so that way one person gets the top of one and the bottom of the other. But then you have the whole discussion about toasted or not toasted, right? Because that's a huge thing. Did you know that?
Yeah, I have heard that. I like mine toasted.
Yeah, I like mine toasted too. So you and I are both, we probably get kicked out of quite a few bagel loving groups, I would imagine, because it's only been in the last maybe couple years that some of the well-loved bagel places in like New York City, for example, have even allowed a toaster in the place and have acceded to their customers' wishes, some of their customers' wishes to actually toast the bagels. But who likes toasted bagels? Yeah, right. Okay, so whatever. Did any New Yorkers raise their hand?
Montrealer did.
Montrealer did. Okay, yeah, excellent. So we're good. What'd you say? When they first come out of the oven. Well, that's okay. I mean, that's a great idea. I grew up in St. Louis, and I don't think there's anybody that bakes them anymore, but one of the bagel bakers there was Petrovsky's, and you could go at like 4 a.m. When the first group would be coming out, and we did, when we were younger, show up at 4 a.m. to grab some bagels that are hot out of the oven, and that was fun. Good memories, actually.
The other thing this boiling does is it helps, kind of activates the yeast that's in there. And it starts, as you can tell, they get bigger from what they were here to what they are now. And that's another thing that boiling does.
So, do you like to eat your bagels with all kinds of different toppings, or are you a plain kind of guy?
I didn't like bagels for a while.
I know you didn't like to make them, but
I didn't like them. I liked them when I was in like elementary school, cream cheese and jam. And then I kind of like didn't eat a bagel for a long time. And then I started to make them and ate them again.
Okay, so anybody have their favorite methods of eating bagels? Yeah, who said that? Oh, cream. Oh, yeah. Okay, cream cheese and lox. That would be Kathleen. You're now on TV, and the producer is saying, "Please sit down." So, sorry. Strawberry jam. Okay, so or avocado. There you go. So instead of avocado toast, we'll have avocado bagel. So and what? And olive oil. Okay, avocado and olive oil. We could actually do that. No, we could actually do that tonight, except for the fact that the 2 avocados that I brought, are these ripe? Oh, yeah, we can do that. We can do that in a little bit later. Sturgeon and pickled onions. Okay, that's good. So I'm lox, capers, red onions, and tomato, and cream cheese. Yeah, and salted capers, not vinegared capers. Okay. Anybody else have a favorite? Toasted with butter. Okay. Peter, what about you, buddy? Yeah? Cream cheese. Well, what about both? Cream cheese or butter? I'd say both. Both and salted. Yeah, and salt. That's great. Okay. Goat cheese. Okay. That one's different.
Fresh tomatoes always.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're not in the right season for that. So we looked, but couldn't do it. So, all right. So, any other important things that we need to know?
Read the directions. I mean, there's always you talk to people about making.
You mean Jeffrey's
directions? Anybody, it's you start talking to them about what maybe they did, and it comes down to this thing that they're like, "Oh, I skipped that." It's like, well, maybe that was the part that where this went this way. But I don't know. I always think that's patience. Patience is the number one baking tool.
I think it really helps to be that type of person if you're a baker. I think that it's a little bit more difficult for somebody who happens to have a more frenetic nature to be a baker, because baking does take plenty of time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, anything that you'd like to pass on other than that in terms of baking bagels? I have to say, I was really impressed with Mary's technique. I think you did a great job did you ever do that before? Or were you just, that was, Mary came up here, those of you who have shorter memories, that was earlier in the program. And I remember that she came up here, and I'm just reminding all of you, and actually rolled the bagels and did a great job of that. So, any other things that you want to pass on, or are we good?
I think we're good unless there's any questions about anything.
Anybody have any questions right now for Aaron? You don't have to keep your questions to bagels. They can be about bread.
A bit of a sporadic bagel demo, but
I actually enjoyed it. But
yeah, well, it was jumped.
yeah. How long do you cook them on the pizza stone? Okay, so on the pizza stone, how long do you think you would need to leave them on there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I've been doing is they're usually in the oven for about 22 minutes. And so with about 10 minutes to go, that's when I flip them onto the stone. But usually with about 2 minutes left, I flip them back onto the other side.
Wait, when you say back onto the other side, are you talking about back onto the baking sheet?
No, just the side that they were on the baking sheet.
Oh, okay. So these
are my bagel secrets.
Okay, go over that one more time. Really?
So yeah, usually they end up I would say they're on that stone for about 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And you flipped them with about 2 minutes.
Flips at the end. Okay. But really it could be dependent on, a lot of your heat comes from the bottom in a home oven. So you kind of have to be careful, just watch them.
When you put them on the pan initially, do you put the topping side down for the first 10 minutes?
So the question is, when you put them on the pan for the first time, you're talking about the baking sheet. Yeah. Do you put them topping side up, topping side down?
Topping side down. For the first, yep.
That was a good question. Peter's going to get a gold star for that one. Okay.
Okay, this is sort of an odd question. So we put bagels in water to boil for a little bit.
Yeah, the bagels go into water, right, to boil for a little bit, right?
Would we ever do that with bread?
Okay, would we ever do that with bread?
Well, it's a bread.
Bagel is a bread.
No, but I mean miche or sourdough or something.
Would you ever do that with other?
I think a lot of it has to do with the size. So you're just dealing with these little morsels, right? If you had a big loaf, it wouldn't enter into the whole loaf, right? You're just like,
we don't do that with rolls.
No, but you could make bagel rolls.
Oh, how about pretzel rolls? I want you to make pretzel rolls. I really do. Garlic pretzel rolls, garlic rolls, pretzel rolls. What?
I don't know. I can't handle the pretzel craze, but I haven't tried it. But that's what I said about bagels 4 months ago.
How about garlic nuts though?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll come over anytime, Steve, and make some garlic.
Oh, sounds good to me. All right, one last question, really quick.
I have heard bagels are more fattening compared to other forms of bread. Is that true? And if so,
are bagels more fattening compared to other forms of bread? Not to brioche, right?
I eat one a day. No, I don't know. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that some bagel, like we were talking about bagels earlier, that oftentimes have like a bunch of stuff on, like sugary stuff on top, and also they're a lot denser. It's kind of can be a heavier dough, like a roll might be. And maybe that's, and also it depends. We just talked about all the things that we put on them. We put, like a butter and cream cheese and jam or something, right? So it's all kind of dependent.
All right. Thank you all very much. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Aaron, so much. You've been listening to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. Aaron Hall of the Local Crumb has been our guest, and we've been making bagels. Please join us for the next live show on December the 5th with Pete DeSico and Ed Malloy, and you can listen to KRUU's Great Taste every Wednesday and Friday, 60 minutes of delicious radio on KRUU FM.
Red taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.